I specialize in fixing things that should probably be thrown in the garbage, but I like to fix things on the cheap. And here I'm going to make a repair of a snowblower that I ruined by running over one of many things. And the straw that broke the camel's back was a big rock that jammed my snowblower. So enjoy the video on how I fixed this on the cheap. As you can see, in order to take the other rake on the one side off, got to take the shear pin off. I want to use the one side to try to set the welds up to match the symmetrically opposite side of that I'm repairing. And you'll notice while you have this apart, this is a 15-year-old snowblower. These bushings are all dry. I'll re-grease those when I put them back together. Awfully surprised they don't put a Zerk fitting on this right here so that you can apply grease while it's assembled. But I'll at least grease it now, and it should be good for another 15 years. The other thing I noticed was there's a little bit of leaking around the shaft, but it seemed to be only when the unit was mounted upside down or in a downward position. So while it's just sitting there, it doesn't really leak. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the opportunity, at least take the drain plug out, check the condition of the oil inside the gearbox, and maybe replace the oil, drain it and replace it with fresh oil. It's designed to break off in these two minimal areas here in case you jam something, to prevent it from destroying the gearbox or the rest of the full assembly. So it's meant to be a fuse essentially to keep you from damaging the rest of it. But in this case, obviously that didn't work because of the failure mode of the rake and where the load was applied. It wasn't really, basically it just tore the weld off and then it just twisted the thing up, so it never applied a lot of torque to the shear pin on the other side. So as you can see, this is the rake on the good side. It's all still together, and when I disassembled it, I just cut these welds off on both sides of each bar, down here and here. And then this was already sheared. This connection of this bar to the shaft had sheared, so I got to redo the weld here and at all four of these other locations. And prior to that, try to bend all these pieces back in to their original shape. You can see this doesn't really, shouldn't be that hard to get close to back where it was. I can see where it bent. There's a bend right here that happened. There's a bend right here. Basically just flatten out the areas where the bends are and I'll be close. And then I have the other side to try to use as a model. Well, as you can see, the first step in bending this back to shape is to bend this thing back to its original shape, which shouldn't be that hard to do. So, but you notice too where this hole is that attaches to the shaft is oversized and deformed now, so I might have to weld a little patch over the hole and recut the hole to give me something to weld to. So we'll see. I'm no expert welder, but we'll see. I can bubblegum weld just about anything. You can see the paint on the inside here, so time I ran the snowblower over a can of spray paint. As you can see, it's getting closer. Bent it. It's got a little twist to it, so I got to figure out a way to twist it. You can see it's twisted, but it's getting closer. Well, after some banging and bending, I got this piece pretty close back to its original shape. At least close enough for what I need it for. That's the area that has to be welded here, and on this side here. So, on to the next piece. This piece is pretty obvious where it buckled. It's right here. Probably if I just bend that, take that bend out of it, it'll be back close to where it was. I'm not thinking it bent at all up in here. Just primarily right here. So, got it mounted here in the vise. And this is where the bend is that I need to take out of it, pushing it this way. And then I think you can see the bend over here. I might be able to bend both of those areas back at the same time here. You can see here's the good side, and here's the pieces that I've bent back as close as I can visually to the original shape. Now I'm going to try to see if I can like pre-assemble it and hold it together with tape and find out where any bends are needed to make everything line up. You can see I've reattached this one member here. I'm trying to line it up at the same relative angle as what's on the other one because it should be the same, symmetrically opposite. You can see this is where I'm going to have to re-weld it back together, which shouldn't be too hard. It's got good contact. I thought it would have to do something to the hole, but apparently it's fitting pretty decent there. I think the original welds are on the inside, but I don't think it matters whether I weld it on the inside or the outside. You can see I have it pretty well set here. I'm just going to tack weld this bar in here at the same angle as it is on the other one so that I can work to correct the bends on the other side, having something that's fixed. I'm just going to tack it so that if I have to move it, I can cut the weld off and adjust. Tack the one spot right here and just in one place to keep it from moving so I can make the other adjustments. I'll put much prettier welds on the rest of it. Well, I got it welded back together. You can see it looks just like the other side now. This is all put back together. As you can see the little Harbor Freight welder I got. Bubblegum welded everything. But I think it's probably strong as it was. So I'm just going to put a little bit of black paint on it so it doesn't rust. as much as it would and put it back together. Yeah, right here is where I want to check the oil level in this thing. Since I have it off, it's dripping some really dark oil that's really cruddy looking. So I figure I might as well drain it out and put some fresh oil in. This rag underneath it's probably going to drip out. Yeah, I opened it up and it doesn't seem to have, it has some oil in it and it looks crappy, but I'm just going to top it off. I don't know if I want to take this all apart and deal with the seals to empty out the old oil and stuff. So I'm just going to top her off with some gear oil. Just going to top it off with some SAE 80W-90 gear oil. I don't think it's anything special, but I need some to top it off while I have the chance. It actually didn't take very much, although it does tend to be going back down, I guess. Keep topping it off. Turn the gears. We'll keep taking the oil in. As I was saying before, since I got this thing apart, I got this bushing that was all dry. I'm going to put some marine grease with PTFE on each end of this to grease these connections that have been dry for a long time. See if she lines up with all the mods I made to this. Hopefully it clears the housing here. We're back into the housing. And just as I had hoped it wouldn't happen, it looks like the new rake is a little bit out of shape here. It hits this bolt here, and it seems to hit on this little tooth here. So what I'll end up doing is getting my die grinder and just trimming that little bit of material off there, and this little spot here where it hits here, just trim it back a little bit, because it's not welded in exactly the same place, and there's not a lot of clearance, obviously. But it looks like that's all I have to do. Looks good as new. You never know it was fixed. Well, maybe, if you look closely. The crappy welds. Off. You can see the teeth on this side because they were interfering. Just this little extra height of this tooth. So I cut them all off. But I still see one spot right here that interferes here and here. So the same spot, if I trim this back another 1/4 inch with the grinder, it should clear the housing. So I'm getting closer. I'm not going to take it off. I'm going to do that on the machine instead of taking it out again. Almost there. You turn it around, it just touched the spot. Right here where I see the mark from the rust, that's where it's hitting. One more off, should turn. There she goes. Spins freely now, doesn't touch anything. I'm probably going to just take a little more off right here because I can see it's pretty close. So it doesn't ever contact it. So. good. This is the piece that I used to take this thing off because this was pressed on here too pretty good. It's a gear puller. What I did was I tightened it down on this top piece here to give me some leverage. And then I popped on the end of this with a hammer several times. It broke the rust loose between this here and here. So otherwise you couldn't pull it off. You're really not pulling it off with the puller, but you're giving yourself something to break the rust loose. So by putting that together like that, pulling it off, I was able to get it apart. I'm going to put some anti-seize on this before I put it back together. Just so I'm going to put some grease inside here. I don't have any anti-seize, but grease in here at least will keep it from, make it easier to take off if I have to take it off again. So. Key here is, I took these off, I want to put the same belt on the same pulley, and I marked this 2 and this belt 2, so I don't know if it's that important. They look like they're the same length, but I see no reason to have them switched. So I'm going to stuck these in here, here. Key is to get this back attached, pulley and everything all engaged. So let's see. Probably going to be the trickiest part of it, trying to get this lined up. Certainly a lot of hands.